1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. On the phone right now, Corey McLaughlin. He's the deputy editor of Lacrosse magazine, does great work covering the lacrosse world. And Corey, the UAlbany Great Danes are number 5 nationally. They're ahead of programs like Duke, Syracuse, North Carolina. Is UAlbany that good, or on the national level have other programs just faltered?
Well, obviously, it's well, first off, thanks for having me. But obviously, yeah, it's been a crazy season with a lot of, the traditional teams and names that a lot of fans and lacrosse people are used to, losing a lot of games early in the season. And then Albany is just kind of, they lost some games early in the season too. They opened, with Syracuse, lost that game, then lost to Maryland in the middle of March. But since then, they won 8 straight. And I think the Yale win last weekend in overtime really, that was a signature win of the season, and that was against a top 5 team at the time. So there's really no reason to not have Albany up there in the rankings. Those rankings have changed throughout the year, but Albany's been pretty consistent. In the top 10 this year. They've lost to Syracuse, but that was a long time ago in season terms. And Maryland's probably one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country and could make the championship game again. So I think they're right about where they should be at this point in the season, which, considering all the, some of the questions coming into the year with, basically what would happen without Lyle Thompson, I think they're pretty happy with themselves at this point.
I was just going to go there. I read a story that you guys had in your magazine about a week ago that it echoed the sentiment I think a lot of people around here had, that, well, without the Thompsons or without any Thompsons, this team's going to be pretty good in their own league, but nationally they're going to struggle to maintain relevancy. Is it possible that they're a better team without any Thompsons? Is that possible?
It's hard to say any team is better when you take away a player like Lyle Thompson. I'm sure any team would love to have him, so I don't think I'd say that. But they, I think what was created during Lyle and Miles' time there, as far as the good vibes around the program and all of that, I think has carried over into this season. And talking with Scott Marr before the season started, the first guy he would mention is Blaze Reardon, the goalie, as far as he's going to probably have to be their best player this season. And you look at what he's done, he's been great. He's got close to 60% save percentage, which is really good. And then he's come up big in some big games, including that Yale game. He had 2 saves in the start of overtime, and after giving one up at the end of the regulation. So I think just the whole attitude that they have is carries over from last season and the last that run of success that they've had.
You mentioned Blaze in the cage, but also on the offensive side of things, Seth Oakes, Connor Fields. Nationally, what's the publicity surrounding these 2 players?
Nationally there hasn't been a ton really, but I think everybody became aware of Connor Fields last year. When he scored the most goals as a freshman ever, and then Seth Oakes. I think people, as we get into the tournament time, I think people will kind of remember him again too, as far as he seems to come up clutch in a lot of situations. 37 goals, which is a lot. So I think they're right there in that kind of that All-American discussion. As Blaze Reardon, I think he should be. I think with midseason, I had him as the top goalie in the country, and I think he doesn't get as much credit as he should for being the kind of stopper that he is, just because of the goal he scored last year against Cornell, going end to end, and kind of the flashy plays he can make. But he's a really good goalie, and I don't think his presence should be understated.
1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. On the phone, Corey McLaughlin. He's the deputy editor of Lacrosse magazine. We're talking about the UAlbany Great Danes, number 5 nationally. Corey, I saw a projection on your Twitter account that you had retweeted that basically looking at some early bracketology that pitted UAlbany against Syracuse again, a rematch of an early season matchup. Could the Danes take down the Orange in a second matchup, or is coming from the ACC, Syracuse would still have the advantage in that matchup?
Yeah, it'd be. That'd be a fun matchup. As we get into tournament time, and it's really all about you look at these first round and quarterfinal matchups and who matches up against who. I think Albany has as good a chance probably a better chance than they had in that opener. Where they were, that one wasn't that close. I've been really, impressed with Albany's, face-off game, just given the fact, last year, they had a Connor Russell towards ACL towards the end of last year, and they had Zach Ornstein step in, and he's above 50% overall individually, and as a team, they're about middle of the pack. So I think as long as they can, get possessions, I think they'll have a chance of beating Syracuse. Now Syracuse has, some great, great talent, obviously, and Ben Williams on face-offs, and that'll be a big matchup, I think, if that game happens. Now, there's a lot to be determined, between now and then, and who knows if that projection will hold up. But I think Albany's got a chance, whoever they play in the first round.
Now, I avoid, for no particular reason, I avoid Barstool Sports mostly, but in reading your column, or your guys' column a week or so ago, UAlbany, I've learned, has come to internet fame via Barstool Sports. What's that all about?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. A couple of weeks ago, it was relatively harmless, thankfully. That's where they kind of just went through the Albany's website and through their headshots and just kind of just riffing on the various funny looks that they had going on there, which they do and which they have had in past years too. It's just funny. I got picked up recently, but the important part about that is Coach Scott Marr thought it was funny too, and this kind of reflects the vibe that they have going on. We had one of our writers, and he's an ESPN broadcaster, Eamon McEnany. He wrote a column last week, and Derek Eccles, who was one of the kids in that Barstool Sports article, had a great quote in there. Just I think kind of sums up their whole season, says, or their whole vibe and attitudes. It's just guys being dudes, which is pretty pretty simple, and just kind of that's really what you need to know about Albany, just the approach that they have. And it's unlike, it's different than some teams in the lacrosse world, and I think that's a good thing for them, and that they have good vibes at practice and headed into games and everything. It's pretty relaxed. So if Barstool Sports picks it up, they picked it up, and it wasn't that bad. So
Corey McLaughlin, deputy editor, Lacrosse Magazine, with us, 1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. We were just talking about Syracuse a second ago. We switch over to the women's game, where on Syracuse we find Capital Region native Kayla Treanor, one of the elite players in the country. She's on the cover of the May edition of your magazine, as far as I recall, and she's been a Tewaaraton Award finalist the last 2 years. Is this the year she's going to break down the door and win the award?
So, yeah, you're right. She's on the cover of our May issue, along with Taylor Cummings. As far as, they've been linked throughout their college careers, and they will be, past, this season too, when they go on and play with Team USA as teammates. But, yeah, basically, her Tewaaraton chances, she's finished, behind Taylor Cummings, who's one of the, greatest women's lacrosse players, that we've seen. And Kayla has been, basically a finalist each of those years. So, and the story within the magazine kind of goes into it a little bit as far as her impact, on Syracuse, and having more of an impact on draws, and whether that will help her Tewaaraton case, because a lot of times, on the women's side, it's been midfield heavy as far as the winners of the Tewaaraton. And so Kayla being, taking more draws and having more impact in the midfield could help her chances down the road. And that said, but a lot of it kind of depends on team success too. And I'm sure either Cummings or Treanor would prefer a team win over the individual awards. But the way that postseason award goes, a lot of times it's tied to team success. So she's got a great chance. If Syracuse makes a run and wins it.
Corey McLaughlin, deputy editor, Lacrosse Magazine. We love his work. He's all over everything on Twitter. Follow him at Corey_MCL. Corey, we'll talk to you again come playoff time, and hopefully it's a deep run for both Kayla Treanor and then the UAlbany Great Danes on the men's side. We appreciate the time.
Great. Yep. Have a good one.